So, have you ever heard the Catholic Church say it has the fullness of the means of salvation? It's a pretty bold claim, right? And honestly, it can sound a little exclusive, maybe even confusing. So, what does it actually mean? Well, that's what we're going to break down today, looking at what the Church itself teaches.
The biggest clue to this whole thing is actually hidden in plain sight. It's in the name itself. The word Catholic comes from the Greek katholikos, which means universal or according to the totality. And that idea, that sense of wholeness, is really the foundation for everything we're about to get into. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by unpacking what this fullness of salvation thing is all about. Then we'll look at the church's structure, its sacraments, its line of authority, and even its history. And then we'll wrap it all up by seeing how this all leads to a really powerful call for communion. Okay, let's dive right into the heart of it. What exactly are these means of salvation that the Church claims to have in their entirety? Well, the Catechism of the Catholic Church basically lays out three essential pieces that all work together. First, you've got a correct and complete confession of faith, everything that's been handed down from Christ and the apostles. Second, a full sacramental life. And third, a ministry with an unbroken line of authority going all the way back to the apostles. The argument is pretty straightforward. If you're missing any one of these, the picture just isn't complete. So this brings us to one of the first major differences, the very nature of what the Church is. Is it just a spiritual idea, or is it something you can actually see and touch here on earth? And you can really see the two different ways of looking at it right here. The Catholic Church sees itself as two things at once, a spiritual community, for sure, but also a visible, structured society with a real hierarchy. That's a big contrast to the common Protestant view, which sees the Church mainly as an invisible spiritual union of all believers. And from that Catholic point of view, an invisible church just doesn't have the tools to do what Christ commanded. I mean, how can a purely invisible community govern its people, teach with a single clear voice, or use discipline like Jesus talked about? That visible structure isn't just a nice to have, it's seen as essential to the mission. All right, next up, let's talk about the sacraments. In the Catholic faith, these are seen as the absolute lifeblood of the Church. They're not just symbols, they're real, tangible ways that God's grace flows into our lives. So Catholic teaching says Christ gave us 7 sacraments, and each one is designed to touch a different important moment in a Christian's life, from birth and growth to healing and our mission in the world. They're meant to provide the grace we need for the whole journey. Now, the Catechism points to one sacrament where the difference is massive, the Eucharist. It says that communities that came out of the Reformation haven't kept the fullness of the Eucharistic mystery, and the main reason given is that they lack the sacrament of holy orders, meaning a valid priesthood. And wow, this slide really gets to the core of it. For Catholics, the Eucharist isn't just a symbol. It is the real presence of Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. To lose that, from their perspective, is to lose the very source and summit of Christian life. And it's not just Eucharist. Another huge piece that's seen as missing is a sacrament of reconciliation, or confession. The idea is that Christ gave his apostles the power to forgive sins in his name. So without this sacrament, how can people have that concrete assurance of forgiveness and the grace they need to heal after baptism? All of this, of course, leads to a pretty big question. How do you protect the faith and pass it down through thousands of years without it getting changed or watered down? The answer comes down to one word: authority. The Catholic Church's answer is what's called apostolic succession. It's basically a direct, unbroken chain of command. Christ gave authority to the apostles. The apostles ordained their successors, who were the first bishops, and that line has continued bishop by bishop all the way to today. It's seen as the guarantee that the original teachings stay intact. And right at the center of this chain of succession is the papacy. The Pope serves as the visible head, the source of unity, the final court of appeal. As one apologist put it, without that final authority, you're left with a blueprint for anarchy, where you can't definitively settle disputes, leading to endless fragmentation. But what about the Bible and the community of believers? Let's look at the last two pieces of this fullness claim to see how they fit into the bigger picture. First up, the Bible. Now, you might actually be surprised to learn this, but the Catholic Old Testament has 46 books, while the Protestant Old Testament has 39. Those 7 extra books are called the Deuterocanon. They were part of the scriptures for the early church, but they were removed during the Protestant Reformation. And this isn't just a small detail. The source material points to a passage in the Book of Wisdom that describes a plot against a righteous man, and it reads almost exactly like a prophecy of Christ's passion. The argument is that when you remove books like this, you kind of break the narrative link connecting the Old and New Testaments. The second thing is the community itself. The Catholic idea of the body of Christ is huge. It includes everyone on earth, the souls in purgatory, and all the saints in heaven. So, in that view, asking a saint to pray for you is just as natural as asking a friend here on earth. To reject that is to kind of cut off the connection between the earthly church and the heavenly one. So, with all these big differences, you have to wonder, how does the Catholic Church see non-Catholic Christians? Well, the key here is a concept called communion. See, the Church doesn't say that other Christians have nothing. Not at all. It teaches that validly baptized non-Catholics are in a state of what it calls imperfect communion. That means they have real elements of truth and holiness, like faith in Jesus and a love for the Bible, but they're missing that full, visible unity, and all the means of salvation sound inside the Catholic Church.
And this brings us right to our final question, which is a big one. In the Gospel of John, right before he died, Christ prayed that his followers would be perfectly one so that the world would believe. So if that was his prayer for perfect unity, we're left with this question. Is imperfect communion really the end goal, or is it a step on the way to something more? Definitely something to think about.